More drama this week in the case of former Boston.com editor Hilary Sargent and her claims that she was sexually harassed by Globe editor Brian McGrory. A judge heard arguments from the Globe, which is looking to force Sargent to produce evidence, while Sargent's attorney argued she has already cooperated enough, and that's the Globe's handling of the case has been an act of intimidation. Soon after one-time Boston.com employee Hilary Sargent released these tweets in late May, claiming Globe editor Brian McGrory sexually harassed her, the Globe filed suit, demanding that Sargent cooperate with their investigation as dictated by a separation agreement she signed.
Up until the point that we filed this complaint, we had no cooperation at all from Ms. Sargent. She would not answer the question about...
Well, Ms. Sargent would say that she approached the Globe months ago on her own.
And she did, contacting both Globe president Vinay Mehra and owner John Henry. Sargent has been hinting in tweets for months that she was a victim of sexual harassment. But once she named McGrory, the Globe wanted to know if her interactions with McGrory took place during her employment there.
She essentially says, all but says, in those tweets that she was an employee at the time. So that was the basis.
One could draw that inference, yes.
All right, and we are now told that more than likely that is false.
In a memo to staff, McGrory has admitted he had a relationship with Sargent, but not while she worked at the Globe. Speaking on behalf of Sargent, attorney Jack Siegel told the court the Globe has been on a smear campaign.
The Globe takes the story, it responds to the story, it tells the world that my client isn't truthful, it tells the world that my client isn't being forthcoming, that she's not cooperating.
At the end of the hearing, the judge ordered both sides to submit a joint letter updating their positions. In other words, work it out yourselves. First of all, I have to say I was in court yesterday, and I was very, very impressed by Judge Christine Roach. Not only was she up to detail of every bit of the case, but she had such a no-nonsense approach. It was almost like, what are we doing here? And she was kind of insisting that each side sort of explain that more thoroughly, why it was necessary to bring this, before the court. And as you heard Mark Barron say, that they thought that Hilary Sargent had been cooperative at all, and the judge interjected and said no, she tried to bring the story before. And interestingly, the judge said, the Globe could do this investigation without her. They're claiming it's absolutely necessary that they have her input. She's saying that's not true. You could have your own investigation. I also got the impression, you were there also, Adam, that she was sort of hoping that the two parties would come to an agreement on their own and that she wouldn't have to make this ruling.
I had that impression very strongly. I think she'd rather not be dealing with this. I think, if I interpret her correctly, and it's always tricky, to try to speak the language of the law when you're not an attorney, but I had the impression, as you said, that she was telling them, go work it out, act like grown-ups. You should not be running to me to seek a solution. And I think she was skeptical of the legal arguments made both by the Globe attorney and by Hilary Sargent's attorney. I want to mention a possible scenario here. My prediction, based on not a ton, is that what's going to happen is they are going to work it out amongst themselves. An investigation will be conducted, and this private matter that we've all been very privy to because of the way Hilary Sargent put this stuff out on social media and the way the Globe responded, it's going to go back to being a private matter that we don't really know that much about as it inches toward resolution. That's my best guess as to where this is going.
Is that a prediction or a hope? I think we're all kind of hoping that, frankly.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it.
I have been very skeptical of the Globe's aggressive legal response to this from the beginning. I think that the judge is absolutely right saying that the two sides ought to get together and work this out without involving the legal system. It is a phenomenally difficult situation for those of us sitting here to try to figure out what happened and what ought to happen. So I think that the idea of this being worked out privately sounds like good news to me, and I hope you're right.
There have been so many, since the Me Too movement began, there have been so many of these cases, and I think everyone has sort of shifted from, in the past, when someone came out, you were somewhat skeptical about, you wanted to hear and learn more, to when someone came out, you were automatically believing it because there was sort of this wave that was moving across the country where we found out these things had been taking place behind the scenes and some people were turning a blind eye. This case is a little different, though. It has been messy. You noted the social media aspect of it, which is kind of not the way these things typically work, although lately it's happening more and more. So that's kind of odd. And it does feel as if you can't really pick a side here. Every time I start buying into one side, then I shift to the other, and I think that's the complexity of it, this particular case. And perhaps, as both of you have noted, this really does need to be handled in a private way because it doesn't feel as if everyone, one person is going to come out as sort of the victor in this, and they need to clean it up privately.
The problem is that it's the Boston Globe and it's the editor of the Globe, and they're going to have to make some kind of a public finding at some point.
And I'm sure they will, but I don't know that we can look at this case and say, okay, based on some of these other cases that we've seen played out in newsrooms across the country, I don't know that this falls into that pattern. Again, I don't have all the details, and I don't know that anybody really does, but this one feels a little different.
I think you have a problem here because you have half the genie out of the bottle. The other half is in the bottle, but one half is out, and you have to deal with it both reputationally. That's both of their reputations. There's too much out there now with regard to Hilary and with Brian. So I don't think it can go all the way back in. Somebody's going to have to make a comment that answers that. And then you have the problem of dealing with this as a journalistic story, because I read a lot of the comments. I don't like a lot of the comments, but I read a lot of the comments on different stories. It doesn't matter what the subject has been in recent weeks. Somebody will write, well, how dare they write about this when they haven't cleaned up their own house? So just for the Boston Globe's own reputation, own journalistic ability to function as it should in covering the Me Too issues and others, they're going to have to address this in some way. I'm not saying we know all the details, but some piece of this is going to have to be public.
That's exactly what the attorney for the Globe was saying in court yesterday, that without some resolution, it would be unacceptable to the employees inside the Globe, to the reading public, and to the two parties involved.
We need transparency, but I think that the idea is they can work their differences out privately, and then there can be some sort of an announcement.
Exactly.
By the way, one other point I just want to throw in. If they ever make a Harvard Business School case study out of this, I think one of the great lessons will be if a former employee comes to you saying they have knowledge of something that was an institutional issue that you need to get a handle on, at least bring them in and talk to them, even if you're not inclined to take them seriously, because otherwise you might wish you had.
That was a huge mistake.